Amid the burning red deserts of modern Australia, there once existed an entirely different world. A place where dinosaurs lived in freezing darkness, where giant crocodiles hunted on land, where kangaroos stood taller than humans and real dragons crawled through ancient forests. A forgotten kingdom where nature once ruled with pure, unchallenged power. This is not a myth, but the true history of the Australian continent millions of years ago. Join me as we journey back to that time to uncover the kingdom of giants that vanished. To understand why Australia today has become such a unique world where marsupials hop across deserts, egg-laying mammals swim in streams, and rainforests thrive in the midst of arid lands. We must travel far back in time to an age when Earth wore a different face. The era of the supercontinent, Gondwana. More than 180 million years ago, Earth looked nothing like it does today. The entire southern hemisphere was one enormous landmass. Gondwana, which included South America, Africa, India, Antarctica, and Australia. There was no Pacific Ocean, no Indian Ocean as we know them now. Only primordial seas surrounding a vast continent where life was quietly transforming. Across that immense expanse stretched forests of giant ferns, ancient conifers, and insect-filled swamps. Covering everything from the edges of Antarctica to what is now Australia, the climate was warmer, and even Antarctica was free of ice. A lush, green wilderness. Ancient amphibians, massive reptiles, and the earliest mammals. Ancestors of marsupials and the platypus first appeared during the Jurassic period. The world of Gondwana was like a vast evolutionary cradle where species could move freely across continents. A dinosaur could walk from what is now Brazil to Africa and then all the way to Australia without ever crossing an ocean. That connection allowed them to share the same evolutionary threads. Dinosaurs, ancient reptiles, gymnosperms, and later the first birds. But Earth never stands still. Around 100 million years ago, immense forces from within the planet began to tear Gondwana apart. The tectonic plates shifted, fractured, and slowly drifted away. India raced northward, preparing to collide with Asia. South America drifted westward from Africa, opening the Atlantic Ocean, and Australia, still attached to Antarctica, began its slow, solitary journey. At first, Australia and Antarctica remained linked by a wide land bridge covered in forests and swamps. The climate was mild, warm enough for vegetation to flourish, even at 70 South. But as ocean currents shifted and cold air crept in from the poles, Antarctica began to freeze, and Australia was forced to choose its own destiny. About 45 million years ago, Australia officially left home, breaking away from Antarctica and drifting northward at a rate of a few centimeters per year. That seemingly slow motion marked a turning point in history. It severed all migration routes for animals to and from other continents. From then on, Australia's wildlife became completely isolated. And that isolation created a world of independent evolution where nature wrote stories unlike anywhere else on Earth. While in Asia and Europe, placental mammals, elephants, tigers, bears, and primates rose to dominance in Australia, stranger creatures took the throne. Marsupials like kangaroos, koalas, and wombats. And monotremes like the platypus continued to thrive and evolve in their own remarkable way. They were evolutionary branches separated since the age of Gondwana, preserved by tens of millions of years of isolation. If you could look down from space back then, you would see a lush green continent drifting away from the frozen lands, gliding across a vast ocean. That was Australia, a lonely vessel carrying the legacy of Gondwana, breaking away from the past to begin its own adventure. As Australia drifted farther north, the climate began to change. Rainforests gradually shrank, giving way to expanding dry lands and deserts. Many species had to adapt or disappear. Yet, amid this period of transformation, the last dinosaurs of Australia still survived near the southern edge of the continent, leaving traces we now uncover in the states of Victoria and Queensland. When Gondwana finally broke apart, Australia became isolated within cold southern seas. And in that isolation, a strange new chapter unfolded. One where dinosaurs survived without sunlight, enduring the frozen south of the world. Let us step into the late Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, an age when Australia was the land of shadow-dwelling dinosaurs. Between roughly 115 and 65 million years ago, during the late Jurassic and Cretaceous, Australia lay at Antarctic latitudes near the icy polar regions. But the world was much warmer than today. There were no permanent ice sheets, only forests of giant ferns, ancient Araucaria pines, and gymnosperms covering the land. Instead of the red deserts we know now, ancient Australia was a lush, humid, and vibrant rainforest. Curiously, even though it lay near the pole, Australia was not completely frozen. The sun still rose, but for months it never set, and during certain seasons, hundreds of days passed in darkness. It was a world half in light and half in shadow, where dinosaurs learned to live through endless polar nights. And in that twilight realm, extraordinary creatures evolved. Amid the cold southern forests of what is now Victoria, a small dinosaur about 2 meters long wandered in search of food beneath the dim southern light. It was Leolinosaura, one of the strangest dinosaurs ever discovered. Unlike tropical dinosaurs, Leolinosaura had enormous eyes, nearly twice as large in proportion to its body. Paleontologists believe those eyes allowed it to see in the dark, helping it survive the long winter months without sunlight. Its brain was also unusually large, a sign of intelligence, spatial awareness, and perhaps even complex communication. On freezing nights, perhaps herds of Leolinosaura huddled together in tree hollows to stay warm, merging only when the sun returned after weeks of darkness. They stand as proof that even near the poles, life never stopped adapting. Leaving the forests of Victoria, we head north to what is now Queensland. Here, scientists discovered fossils of Muttaburrasaurus, a herbivorous dinosaur over 7 meters long and weighing several tons. Its most distinctive feature was a large bulbous nasal chamber, like an inflatable pouch, possibly used to produce deep echoing calls across the plains, either to communicate with its herd or to intimidate rivals. With strong jaws and thick leaf-shaped teeth, Muttaburrasaurus could crush tough plants, roots, and dry ferns. It was the gentle giant of ancient Australia, a symbol of the thriving herbivorous fauna that flourished in the continent's mild climate. But in nature, there are never only plant eaters. In the same sediment layers as Muttaburrasaurus, paleontologists discovered footprints and bones of Astrovenator, the most fearsome predator ever to stalk the Australian continent. At about 6 meters long, with powerful legs and curved claws up to 25 centimeters long, Australinator has been called the Velociraptor of Australia. It hunted with speed, ambushing prey, then leaping forward in sudden, deadly bursts. Muscle reconstructions from fossils suggest it could run faster than 40 kilometers per hour, an astonishing feat for a prehistoric creature. Some researchers believe Austrovenator was a distant descendant of Allosaurus, which once ruled Gondwana. Proof that even in isolation, the lineage of predators survived and adapted to harsh new environments. Picture it: a misty forest, dim light, filtering through ancient trees, a dusting of snow on their massive trunks. In the shadows, tiny Linosaur hide. The great Muttaburrasaurus grazes on ferns. An Orlovnata waits silently for its moment to strike. This was Dinosaur Age Australia, a world completely unlike anywhere else on Earth. And as the Cretaceous period drew to a close, 66 million years ago, catastrophe struck the northern hemisphere. A massive asteroid impact unleashed waves of destruction across the planet, wiping out nearly all dinosaurs. The forests of Australia, too, were devastated, leaving behind space for primitive marsupials, small, elusive creatures that endured through the darkness. When the dinosaurs vanished, the world entered a new era. The world entered a new era. Earth cooled. The continents drifted further apart. And in the southern hemisphere, Australia began to take on the shape we recognize today. About 2.6 million years ago, the planet entered a series of ice ages, long frigid epochs, when massive glaciers blanketed both poles. Although far to the south, Australia felt the effects profoundly. Temperatures dropped sharply, rainfall declined, and rainforests receded, placed by expanding deserts and dry grasslands, the ancestors of today's harsh outback. Sea levels fell by as much as 120 meters, exposing the shallow seas between Australia, Tasmania, and New Guinea. As a result, the three landmasses merged into a new supercontinent, Sahul. If you looked at a map from that time, all of Australia, Papua New Guinea, and Tasmania were connected into a single landmass larger than Europe. Across Sahul, ecosystems shifted rapidly. In the north, still warm and humid, rainforests survived, sheltering ancient marsupials. But in the center, deserts expanded and rivers and lakes shrank, forming vast inland basins such as Lake Eyre, Lake Fro, and lake remnants that today lie dry and cracked. During warm periods, these basins filled with water, forming shallow inland seas. When the cold returned, they dried up again, leaving behind salt and clay. A cycle of life, death, and rebirth repeated for tens of thousands of years. And in that ever-changing landscape, new creatures rose to dominance. The descendants of dinosaurs, the giant marsupials, they were the rulers of Sahul, masters of every terrain. From the rainforests of the north to the deserts of the interior, the world of Sahul was a paradox. Harsh, yet full of life. Unforgiving, yet generous to those who could adapt. On the arid plains, the giant kangaroo Procopode, standing over 2 meters tall, hopped slowly among thorny scrub. In the wetlands, Diprotodon, a distant relative of the wombat, weighed up to 3 tons and grazed lazily on grass. And in the water lurked Quincana, a 7 meters long crocodile waiting patiently for its next victim. In the open forests, the marsupial lion Thylacoleo, the most powerful predator on the continent, stalked smaller marsupials in silence, and then humans appeared. Around 50 to 60,000 years ago, the first groups of Homo sapiens left Asia, crossed the shallow seas of Wallachia on primitive wooden rafts, and set foot upon Sahul. They were the ancient ancestors of the Aboriginal Australians, the earliest known inhabitants of the continent. To them, Australia was not a barren land, but a living world of spirits and giant beasts. Ancient rock paintings found in Kakadu and Kimberley, dating back more than 40,000 years, depict enormous fur-covered creatures with large claws and wide mouths. Many of these images strongly resemble Diprotodon, Megalania, or Genesis, suggesting that early humans once lived alongside and witnessed the final age of Australia's giant animals. Archaeological evidence from Lake Even preserves their footprints in campfire ashes, proof that humans hunted, burned grasslands, cooked meat, and lived along the shores of ancient lakes for tens of thousands of years. A woman's skeleton, discovered there known as Lady, is one of the oldest modern human fossils in the world, dating back more than 40,000 years. Nearby, Mango Man, carefully buried with ash and red ochre, reveals one of humanity's earliest known funeral rituals, evidence of a deep spiritual life. Imagine dawn over the Sahul plains, a thin mist drifting across lake herds of giant Diprotodon moving in line. And in the distance, the first humans lighting their fires. They watched the massive creatures around them in awe and in fear. Perhaps they were the first to tell stories of the great spirit beasts. Tales passed down for tens of thousands of years still echoed today in the Dreamtime legends of Aboriginal culture. The world of Sahul was not only humanity's first stage in Australia, it was also the final stage of the Megafauna, the golden age of Australia's giants. But from that moment on, as humans spread across the continent, the wheel of evolution began to turn in a new direction. Within just a few thousand years of human arrival, many giant species vanished forever. That was the beginning of a tragic and epic era. The age of conflict between intelligence and instinct, between human fire and nature's might. And that is the story of the next chapter, the Age of Giants, the Australian Megafauna. From about 2 million to 40,000 years ago, Australia entered the golden age of the Megafauna, giant creatures that evolved from ancient marsupials. There were no elephants, lions, or bears like those of other continents. Instead, Australia hosted its own cast of strange and formidable beasts, both familiar and alien, ancient and astonishing. Picture yourself walking across a dry grassland in central Sahul. In the distance, red dust swirls and from the haze emerges Pruton, a kangaroo as tall as a man. Standing over 2 meters high and weighing nearly half a ton, it was the largest kangaroo ever to exist. Strangely, it didn't hop like modern kangaroos. Instead, it walked step by step on a single leg, using its thick tail as a third pillar for balance. Its face was short and almost flat, with an upturned nose and large eyes. It likely fed on tough desert leaves, using its thick front teeth to grind them down. When early humans first encountered Procopatodon, they might have thought it a pouched giant, a half-human, half-beast wandering through the red twilight of the desert. And then came the gentle king of the Sahul Plains, Diprotodon, a distant relative of the koala. Nearly 4 meters long and weighing more than 3 tons, it was the size of a small truck. With its sturdy legs and massive rounded head, Diprotodon was the largest marsupial ever to walk the earth. They moved in herds, each individual leaving deep footprints in the moist soil. Their diet consisted of dry grasses, roots, and acacia leaves. Perhaps Diprotodon dug shallow burrows or rested in the shade of large trees to escape the searing heat of the dry season. Some Diprotodon fossils have been found alongside human footprints, suggesting that people once hunted or trapped them. Likely among the final encounters before the species vanished around 46,000 years ago, but not all creatures of Sahul were gentle. Hidden in the sparse forests was a far deadlier predator than any other ever to roam Australia. Thylacoleo, the marsupial lion, about 1.5 meters long and weighing up to 150 kilograms. It possessed immensely powerful jaws with a bite force greater than that of an African lion of similar size. Its teeth were not pointed, but flat and razor-sharp, designed for slicing through flesh. Scratches found on Diprotodon bones suggest they were among its frequent prey. With curved claws on its forelimbs, Thylacoleo could climb trees, ambush from above, and kill in a single swift strike. Perhaps it was not a meteor, but the marsupial lion that haunted the nightmares of Sahul's creatures. Yet, if you think that was the pinnacle of terror, meet Megalania, Varani's priscus, a giant lizard up to 7 meters long and weighing over a ton. It was an ancient relative of today's Komodo dragon, but 3 times larger, armed with mild venom and a chillingly patient hunting style. Megalania roamed dry forests and open plains, preying on young Diprotodon and possibly even early humans. A single bite could crush ribs, while its venom would paralyze the victim within minutes. Scientists believe Megalania may have been the largest land-dwelling predatory reptile since the age of dinosaurs. In the skies, or rather across the plains, ran Genonis newtoni, a giant flightless bird as tall as an ostrich. Standing 2 meters high and weighing over 200 kilograms, it couldn't fly, but sprinted swiftly through scrublands. Feeding on fruit and leaves, its eggs were the size of basketballs, and it's believed that early humans collected and cooked them. Scorch marks on ancient cave fragments in southern Australia still bear witness. These traces reveal a sad truth. Wherever humans set foot, the Megafauna slowly disappeared. Around 45 to 40,000 years ago, nearly all of Australia's giant species were gone. Scientists still debate why. Was it climate change or the hand of humankind? The continent had grown drier and grasslands vanished. But the timing aligned suspiciously with human expansion across the land. Another theory suggests that the fires lit by early people for clearing land and hunting destroyed the habitats of the Megapora, leaving them nowhere to live. Whatever the cause, the result was the same. The world of the giants collapsed, giving way to smaller survivors. Kangaroos, koalas, and wombats, their living descendants today. When the giants fell, humans became the new rulers of the continent. But they did not forget the past. They told it, sang it, and painted it, keeping the memory of those lost beasts alive. And that leads to the next chapter: humankind and the oldest living culture, the Dreamtime of Australia. After the last of the giant creatures disappeared around 40,000 years ago, humans became the sole dominant species on the continent of Sahul. But instead of building walls or hunting without restraint, they lived in harmony with the land and sky. The Aboriginal Australians developed a culture that has continued unbroken for more than 60,000 years. Considered the oldest living civilization on Earth, To them, the world was not created once, but dreamed and retold every day, according to their beliefs. In the beginning, during the dream time, giant ancestral spirits, half human and half animal, roamed the land, singing mountains into being, shaping rivers, lakes, and every living creature. Those songs were more than myths. They were living maps, guiding people through nature and teaching them how to survive within it. Every river, mountain, and stone was tied to a story, a dreaming. The young learned by singing, carving images onto rock, or retelling stories through drums and dance. Through this, the memory of tens of thousands of years of Australia's natural history was preserved. Not in writing, but through sound and symbol. In the ancient rock shelters of Kakadu, Kimberley, and Arnhem Land, archaeologists have found thousands of paintings dating back 30 to 40,000 years. Some depict enormous, thick-bodied creatures with heavy tails and great claws, strikingly similar to Diprotodon, Megalania, Genernes, and Procopodon. Paintings were not just religious symbols. They may have been living memories of the Megafauna their ancestors once encountered. One painting in the Kimberley region shows a massive four-legged creature with a round head and short tail, surrounded by small people holding spears. The local people call it the bunyip, a mythical swamp-dwelling beast said to devour humans, an ancient spirit animal. Intriguingly, its description closely matches that of Diprotodon, the giant wombat-like creature that went extinct tens of thousands of years ago. Could the bunyip be a faded memory of a real animal passed down through hundreds of generations? In the language of symbols, the dreamtime is not only the past. For Aboriginal people, dreamtime is now. It is ongoing. When they sing an ancient song, they are not merely telling an old story. They are bringing the spirits of their ancestors back to life through sound. When they paint upon the rocks, they are not recording history, but connecting the present with the past. A realm where humans, land, and creatures are one. That is why they see time not as a straight line, but as an eternal circle. Death does not end life. It is a return to the earth, to the dreamtime spirits who first shaped the world. For this reason, nature is sacred. Every river, mountain, and dune possesses its own spirit. Today, many scientists recognize that the dreamtime stories are not just mythology. They contain valuable paleogeological knowledge. They accurately describe geological changes, the shaping of coastlines, the eruption of volcanoes, even the rise of sea levels that occurred tens of thousands of years ago. Some tales of the sea swallowing the land match precisely with the post-Ice Age flooding about 10,000 years ago, when rising seas submerged the land bridge between Australia and New Guinea, their way of seeing the world through collective memory, oral tradition, and deep respect for nature makes Aboriginal culture one of the most ancient and resilient systems of knowledge on the planet. Millions of years have passed. The giant beasts remain only in stone, while the dreamtime spirits still whisper through the wind. Modern Australia, with its red deserts, rainforests, and crashing waves, is the final chapter of a story written in time itself. But if you listen closely, you can still hear the footsteps of Diprotodon on the sand, the breath of Megalania in the night wind, and the songs of the ancestors echoing across the ancient cliffs. For the past has never truly disappeared. It merely sleeps beneath the dust of this vast continent. Thank you for journeying with me through millions of years of Australia's history. Be sure to like, subscribe, and join me again as we explore more prehistoric worlds where time is still telling its story.